his demonization of Latinos is unconscionable, and it's un-American. It's totally contrary to everything we've done, everything we.
Imagine if he was the nominee for the past 3 months. He'd probably be dead. I'm staying in the race. Quickly replace Kamala Harris with Joe Biden. No, yeah. So he called half of the one half of the political base garbage, which Donald Trump can do, but Joe Biden can't do because of rules. Anyway, he probably misspoke. My guess is that what he meant to say was like the only garbage I see out there are the opinions or like these claims or whatever. It doesn't really matter whether or not he misspoke, obviously. It's not like it's not like there are any arguments you're going to win where a Republican is going to be like, he called us garbage, and you're going to be like, no, he misspoke actually. And then you're both going to arrive at an agreement. They're going to vote for Kamala Harris. Who cares? He essentially said they're garbage, which is a correct statement. So who even cares, right? Kamala Harris, because she's a huge pussy, disavowed.
Type of leader I intend to be.
President Biden took his comment last night about garbage.
Listen, I think that, first of all, he clarified his comments, but let me be clear, I strongly disagree with any criticism of people based on who they vote for. You heard my speech last night and continuously throughout my career. I believe that the work that I do is about representing all the people, whether they support me or not. And as President of the United States, I will be a president for all Americans, whether you vote for me or not. That is my responsibility, and that's the kind of work that I've done my entire career, and I take it very seriously.
Thanks, Kamala. That's great. Yeah, I don't really want to engage in this that much. This is, look, the idea that Republican voters are garbage is a position held by basically every liberal in this country anyway. Like, if you talk to the average Kamala Harris supporter and you say, dude, Trump voters, right? They're not going to be like, I don't know, I feel like we can all work together. Have you talked to a liberal? Yeah, they call them monsters. It's not the political partisanship, the polarization is not exclusively experienced by Republicans. Democrats also talk like this between each other. It's just Democrat politicians don't. Republican politicians will. Republican voters will. Democrat voters will. Democrat politicians don't. Democrat politicians will be like, no, hold on. Can you imagine how much better it would have been if she had triggered another right-wing meltdown by saying something along the lines of like, Donald Trump just called America a garbage bin literally at the last rally. I don't know. Like, what is he going to walk back that statement, or is he going to admit that this country has no garbage in it? Or like, there are like a million ways you could spin this to give them a little jab. I didn't like Joe Biden's off-the-cuff remarks while defending Puerto Ricans offend Republicans. I didn't realize they were so sensitive to remarks like that. Like, there are so many things they could go with. Democrats delusionally believe that there are people who are voting based on like who the most bipartisan candidate is going to be, and I just don't buy it. We're in such a polarized environment. I don't know why they're running on the anti-polarization ticket when everyone is polarized. It's not a good time for that. I said a second ago, I said in the last segment, or whatever passed for a segment in this like blighted newscape, that it seems like the rhetoric is a lot more tired and a lot more fatigued from the right about stopping the steal now than it was back in 2020, and a lot of that is because they don't give as much of a shit because it's like old hat news. I want to show you what Charlie Kirk said in response to, because like obviously right now, because the right wing has like nothing, they are screaming from the rooftops about how like Joe Biden is super, super evil for this incredibly evil thing that he said that like, Donald Trump would never. Donald Trump represents all Americans, and Joe Biden is the one who, look at what Charlie Kirk said. And I think this is so indicative of their mind state and how little they care. Joe Biden is using dehumanizing language towards 80 million Americans, calling Trump supporters garbage. This is how the worst atrocities of the 20th century begin again in 2024. They think you are garbage, therefore worthy of elimination. And like, you get statements like this from neo-Nazis pretty often, where they're like grinning. They're like, they think they're really clever because they operate in their own circles. And they're like, like while imagining gassing Jews, they're typing like, when the Jewish community of Weimar Republic called us fascists and anti-Semites, that's how dehumanizing language leads to genocide. Like They know it's projection. They think it's hilarious. Yeah. They think they're doing like an epic own, basically. It's the same tactic children use when arguing. You know what I mean? Where like a parent will call their 6-year-old son uncooperative because they won't put their shoes on before school. And then the kid is like, can we get McDonald's before we go to school? And the mom is like, no, we can't. We have to go to school. And the kid's like, oh, now who's being uncooperative? You said we had to get along in order to make the beginning of the day smooth. And now you're saying I can't get what I want. You got what you wanted, but I don't get what I want. And they have like a smug little grin, you know? It's literally like, I remember how I argued back when I was like 10, you know? Vasha speaking from experience. Yes! Well, I'm not a McDonald's guy, so it wasn't with McDonald's, but I understand absolutely the like, I understand that I'm in the wrong, so I'm going to be a smug piece of shit and try to like turn it back on them, but while knowing that I'm deliberately being disingenuous. Yeah, I mean, I stopped doing that at like 10, but I recognize the tactic. God, you must have been insufferable. Isn't that obvious? From watching me now? Isn't that like really clear? Yeah, used to be insufferable. Anyway, the point that I'm trying to get at is that when Charlie Kirk typed that tweet, he was grinning when he did it. He knows that he and his crowd are Nazis, or at the very least fascists. He's doing this because he thinks it's hilarious for him, a Nazi, to say like, oh, they called us bad. This is how the Holocaust happens. It's hilarious to him. But that rhetoric also isn't very effective. Look at the tweet. 5.5 thousand comments, 26K likes. On Elon's Twitter, that ain't platinum. That's not even bronze. It's not that effective because even though the Republican Party is made up pretty much exclusively of grifters and psychopaths, you still have to try. You understand? Like, even though everything is teed up for them, they still have to try. If the rhetoric gets oversaturated or it becomes so flagrantly dishonest that they feel stupid saying it, they don't do as good of a job. If they don't try at all, their rhetoric suffers. I'm just using Charlie Kirk as like an example here. Basically, every right-wing pundit is doing exactly what he is doing right now. That's why the Walls misinfo didn't work. That's a great example. Remember how a little while ago, some Nazis made a deepfake of a student of Tim Walz, where it was like a deepfake video of him saying he was sexually molested by Walz, and it was completely fake. The audio wasn't him, the video wasn't him. They just animated a still image of an adult version of the student that Walz had. Or yeah, saying like horse cum Walz or whatever. None of these stuck to him at all because they were concocted by the most jeering, obviously dishonest lunatics. And for that reason, it didn't take off. Like, they're so evil and so locked in their own bubble. They're so, like, contained to their own space where they forget what it's like to interact with normal people. They're not good at selling that position. Does that make sense? You see this really often when you see how Nazis interact with like normies on Twitter, where a relatively normie person will say something like, you know, I like multiculturalism because I think that, you know, it's great when we all have taco trucks that we can eat from because they're yummy and delicious. And then somebody with a Pepe profile pic will respond with something like, you know, hey, like noticer logged on, what kinds of people do you think got those taco trucks there? Hint, honk, honk. And then the normal person will be like, what the f are you talking about? And the Pepe avatar will say like, I'm noticing which group of people, which from the, and the normal person will be like, what are you talking about? I'm noticing. Are you okay? They don't know how to talk to normal people because they're locked in their own social bubbles. Am I a normie? You're confusing me. I mean, maybe that's kind of the bit, but I'm not even exaggerating how they talk that much. This is why right-wing pundits inevitably devolve. Ben Shapiro is effectively a rusty, blunted version of Ben Shapiro from years ago because the audience he deals with doesn't demand anything or challenge him. The only, like, challenges that Ben Shapiro gets are from Nazis who attack him for being a Jew. That's literally it. He doesn't get any pushback from, like, in a way that would develop him as a rhetorician. And neither does Charlie Kirk. Though Nazis don't bug Charlie Kirk anymore because ever since the Nick Fuentes, Charlie Kirk, America First versus I'm blanking on what his organization is called. What's Charlie Kirk's org? I'm blanking. TPUSA, ever since the Groyper War, yeah, Charlie Kirk just adopted the positions